cannot make it for the session. I have with me Dr. Wambe and Professor Vinette. Oh gosh, and I wrote Vinette because I call her Vinette and not Jacob, Professor Jacobs, but it is Dr. Vinette Jacobs, who has joined us now that she's back from her R&D, well-deserved R&D break, and we are very glad to have her back. I think the first thing I wanted to just make sure that we all understand that from this point onwards, any announcements that are exam related will be on the My Exam platform and not on the My Module. So I just wanted to keep those two things separate, simply because if it's on the My Exam platform, it goes out to the supplementary and to the 2023 students immediately. And I don't have to worry about putting it on two different sites, and it will go out to both sets of students. Great. So what is it that we are meant to do today? So today I will do one thing, and that is the assignment 2 feedback. There will be general information about the exam, Turnitin, and we call it Turnitin, but there is a similarity check between the papers of students. So there will be, there's a definite step that checks for that. Of course, the sources, how to put it in your words, what you should avoid, finding My Exam, and of course, the Invigilator app. I am assuming that, of course, you've been studying for all of your exams, that you've been engaging with the materials that is found on my module site, on the e-reserves that are available in the library site. That's where you get all your cases and your articles and so forth. So we are working from that point onwards. So keep that in mind, that there is an understanding on our side that you have been engaging with the material. To start off with, very quickly, I wanted to go on to assignment 2. We have released assignment 1s this morning, and we're hoping to do assignment 2 quite quickly as well. Sadly, there's a technical issue that has arisen with the assignment functionality, and this is why it took so long, because there was a technical issue. Some of the papers, when we opened them, were just a blank page. Those had to be separated out from the ones that we could mark, and there were a series of meetings that were held to try and figure out how to resolve that. Those students will have to wait for their assignments. I'm really sorry, but there's been some, it's not all students. I think probably 90% of all students should have gotten their papers back. It's just a few, and you know, it's something that we have no control over. It's a technicality. We are seeing this in not just in insurance law, but in other modules as well, which is why it became a bit of a bigger issue in terms of how we deal with it. So we had to deal with that before we could do any releasing. And of course, for that reason, we made sure that we gave you assignment 1 feedback already. You know what you wrote, you have an idea, and you knew the expectations. So I'm going to do the same with assignment 2. We'll try and get it out to you as soon as possible, and then we'll deal with the exam itself. So the general thing, and you'll see for this one, you know, you will have some, the main comment that kept coming to my mind when I was going through this, and I know these are 2 problem type questions, and the idea behind it, and the idea behind the first assignment as well as this one, is to prepare you for similar type of questions in the exam. So when I say type, it means knowing how to approach a problem type question. I'm not saying, you know, we'll ask you similar questions. No, we wanted you to learn the skill of doing this. So the one thing I think was very important is that you had to set out the legal principles very carefully, so that you're not talking about everything. And this is, you know, there were students who wrote, you know, 6-7 pages. these answers for 5 marks each, you could have ideally written them down a paragraph each, a longish paragraph, but a paragraph each. So keep that in mind. You have to be very succinct. Remember, in the exam, you're not going to have all this time to talk about many different things, talk about morality of stuff. No, you have to know the legal principles, set them down, the specific one that apply here. Apply them to the set of facts that we've given you, and give us a thoughtful response. The first question, a lot of students have to understand this, and this is a general thing for all lawyers out there and for ourselves, is that sometimes we do have to tell a client that they don't have a case. And I think this is where I want a thoughtful answer, not an emotional answer. This first set of facts made some people feel very aggrieved that the widow would not get any money. But the legal principles are that, if you apply them properly, you have to give that response to her. And here I will also say reference applicable prescribed law. And when I say prescribed, is the ones that we have prescribed to you in the e-reserves. They were references to cases we had not at all prescribed. There were a couple of Canadian cases. There was even an Indian case being discussed. And that showed me that somebody had copied and pasted from the internet. So first set of facts is quite important to understand very clearly the difference between morality and law. Suicide is not an unlawful act. So an insurer, of course, is not liable if you commit suicide. And of course, the fact that and that in the contract itself, there was a very specific provision. They usually have a provision. In this case, there was a provision. It was before the time that the provision was completed, and therefore she did not have a case. Second set of facts, and here the person actually had multiple sources, multiple reasons to have an insurable interest. So, you could have a husband, according to Little John, can have insurable interest in the property of their wife. And, just extrapolate that. A spouse, any spouse, can have an interest in the property of their spouse. I use the word spouse because we are, that includes same sex and differently gendered. So just remember, if you are married to someone, you will have an insurable interest. And in Little John specifically, they had a common business. So that was a very good case there because it was very specific to the set of facts given. In Phillips, even though they had been married out of community property, the judge said, even if you're married out of community property, there's this moral obligation to replace things that belong to your spouse. So you could have referred to that as well. And then you, of course, had to apply to this case. And the legal principle is not just that they have an insurable interest, is that they have a financial interest in this. Yes? So you had to apply. And you'll see for both sets of things, I say maximum 5 because there were many points you could make. As long as you made more or less, most of them, you got your marks. And how you argue it as well. I mean, please just make sure that, you're not in the first instance, there were some people who'd said, well, had the facts been different, she would have had a case. Well, the facts are not different. You just have to deal with the facts presented to you. So in case you went and then talked about those other things, there was a whole lot of words that gave you no marks. So be very, very succinct. Make sure that you utilize your time as appropriately as possible. Now, this is, I suppose, the big thing that everybody's here for, and that is the exam. Firstly, it's the 18th of May. It starts at, and it's not 4, it's actually, it's 2:15 and finishes at 2:15. At 6, and there's usually some sort of leeway in terms of if there's an issue with uploading and so forth. But that is really if there's a technical issue on our side. Just remember that we are not giving you leeway for you to have added time. That's not the point. Yeah. It's a paper out of 75 marks. The weight is 20 and 80. So your exam carries the biggest amount of weight that goes towards your final mark. So please keep in mind that. It is open book. We will be using, so, you know, you'll, it's at, you're doing it in, you know, as open book. But since it is 4 hours, please prepare for it like it's a real exam. There will be the use of the Invigilator app, and there are student documents and so forth that specifically talk to that, how you should be, how you must use it, how you should use it, how you should download it, all of those sort of things. I know it's available online on the My Exam platform for our subject. In the welcome message, there are links provided if you needed more information. So the entry to the app closes 30 minutes after the exam session has started. So don't try and download and register yourself on the app as you're going to start and write. You know, do it before the time. Download the app. You know, when it's the, you know, your exam starts at 2:15. Make sure that you've already sort of signed on before the time, yes, so that you are not scrambling at that point. And if you have a technical issue at that point, it really will impact your exam. And there's very little we can do. And there's a WhatsApp number that you guys can access to if there's issues. We can't help you as lecturers. We have almost no control on how the Invigilator app works and how to help you get online and things like that. That is really outside of my understanding, the technicalities of this and all of that. So what we expect is for you to study all your prescribed reading, your study guide, and of course, have everything at hand. Know that you might have to reference things, or at least we won't expect footnotes because it is a 4-hour exam paper, but we're expecting you to, if it is a problem type question referencing a specific case, like the assignment, you would have to then say, in this case, something similar happened. This was the legal principle that came out of that case. So we want you to be able to make that kind of reference. You're not expecting footnotes, but where a specific section of the act, where a specific case has direct implication, you have to refer to it. So I'm going to stop there and ask my colleagues, Dr. Vambe, before we go on to a very important slide. In fact, let me go over that, and I think perhaps Dr. Jacobs would have something to add to that, because I'm not quite sure I've made sure that everything is there. You will see that a new tutorial letter 102 has been uploaded. This is quite an essential part of the course. It contains additions and amendments. It's not a very long document, but it does contain additions and amendments because the insurance regulatory landscape has changed dramatically since the book was initially published. It is currently being updated. There's some understanding on the policy holder protection rules that you'll have to just really understand well. And you'll see Professor Jacobs has very kindly gone through each learning unit and said, okay, this is where you need to have some added understanding. This is where you need to have some added understanding. So please go through the tutorial letter. It is quite important. And I'm going to stop there for a few seconds to allow Professor Jacobs and Dr. Vambe to add on before we move.
Hey,
Hello, Asina, your camera's on. We can see you. Dr.
Morning,
Wambe, go ahead.
morning, Miss Rafia. Morning, colleagues. Morning, students. At the moment, I have nothing really to say to add to what you have explained to the students, but I'll just try to emphasize that the information that the students were given, it has to be taken seriously. This is an exam, and they should try by all means to make sure that they study their work, revise your exams, rather the activities in the tutorial activities. Sorry, in the textbook, the activities that you are at the back of the textbook, and then like I would say, yeah, mostly. I'll say, let me leave it there. Revise your work and make sure you understand what the approaches are. That's what I can say. But anyway, thanks, Ms. Rafia.
Thank
Yeah.
you, colleagues. This is Vanette Jacobs. So I just want to also confirm what Mr. De Gama said in connection with this tutorial letter 102. So how you'll approach this study, and hopefully you've already started, is you'll take your study guide and then start from the beginning, obviously. And then when you study the first topic or the first learning unit, you'll go to the corresponding part in tutorial letter 102, see if there's any amendments. And then also while you are studying, study the applicable case law and the applicable parts from the textbook. So don't try to study first the study guide, then the 102, then the textbook, and then the cases separately. No, you must study in an integrated manner, because that's the only way that you'll know if you are confronted with a problem type question on, say, for instance, insurable interest. Then you'll immediately know, okay, insurable interest, these are the possible cases that can be applicable. Or no, listen, the law changed. It's not as it was stated in the textbook anymore. You've been referred to the updated part on X, Y, and Z. So we'll immediately see if you refer to older versions of the policyholder protection rules, or if you refer to an older part of the act that might have been changed, that you have not consulted tutorial letter 102. So please, that. Secondly, I just cannot stress enough that you must please use this weekend, if you've not done so, to go through all your work, to write up all your questions, and then to contact us very early, Monday, Tuesday. You cannot leave it to Wednesday, Thursday to contact us, because there's a huge influx of inquiries also now concerning the assignments, and there's usually a high influx of inquiries before the exam. We are all dealing with issues such as load shedding, not you only. So we want to help you, but we need due time to assist you um, professionally. So please go through your work this weekend and send us your inquiries Monday latest. And that's basically all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that is I think quite a good advice as well, because of course it is quite essential to understand that all of the lecturers are involved in more than one undergraduate course as well as postgraduate courses. So keep that in mind. And when Professor Jacobs, of course, is referring to inquiries, we're talking about substantive course-related inquiries. We cannot, there's a lot of other issues that we may or may not be able to assess, technical things and so forth. And please just go and see, go into the My Exam platform, see if you can find where it's going to be and so forth. I do assume as final year students, you've gone and done these things before. We've had the Ventilator app for a few years now. So that should not be such a new thing. I'm gonna talk more about the exam itself. So there is a reference to Turnitin in the PowerPoint, and I keep it in because though sometimes we do and sometimes we don't use it depending on the circumstances. One thing that the Turnitin system does is that it compares your papers to other students. And that similarity test will happen, whether we use Turnitin or another software. We will definitely be checking to see, and that is just to make sure that students do not end up being next to each other, writing the same things, utilizing the same documentation and so forth. I do understand that there are people out there who would like to tell you that they've got the perfect answers and they can give you those perfect answers. So we are looking for similarity and that sort of thing with the Invigilator app, and that is something I will talk to, because that has more of a control over your background noises, if you're talking to someone, but also if you are in close proximity. But I will talk to that when we get that. And here, there's no such thing as a correct percentage. Just keep in mind, we have a way of figuring out, and generally, you'd be surprised how good lecturers are at this, but we know when students have used exactly the same source to write something. It's fairly obvious to us, but I think that comes with the many years of experience that we've been involved in these processes. So what are the sources you can actually use? Textbook, cases, legislation, and of course, tutorial letter 1 or 2, and all this, then the study guide as a reference. We are not asking you to, as I've said, provide footnotes, but where there's a very specific case, a section of the legislation, let's say a very specific PPR that should be directly part of your answer, please put it down. That is going to, you get a mark for actually knowing the specific case that is applicable, the specific section of the legislation. What if you use online sources? And I've just given you offhand 3 examples that it was fairly easy because they were foreign cases, but also if you use a case that we haven't prescribed to you, it is not a seminal case. When we say a seminal case, it means a case that has been made by a high enough court that not only the highest court that is available at that point, but also that the authors in this field have said this was a change bringing case. This is very important. It defines certain things. Those are very important things for us. So it's also that belief by the experts in the field that this is an important case. Sometimes if you go onto a blog site of even the most famous law firms, they will put in cases where they were they were representative of the party. So they'll say, oh, this case is very important because we were involved and we made such a good argument. We'll know when you do that, because they're just self-aggrandizing. They're just saying, oh, look at us, we're wonderful. That's not what we are looking for when we are prescribing cases to you. Always, always. So when you are referring to things, it's an open book exam. You still have to put things in your own words. And I know I've shown this to you guys before. So when you study, read for understanding, and to do that, you have to summarize the important bits. So that'll help. And then you have to say, well, how do I put it in my own words? Yes. And then take what you've written and compare it against the original source. And of course, add citation if you have to. I think I've shown this one before as well many times. You'll have very specific things that are only in insurance law. You wouldn't necessarily find this in the law of contract or some other things. So how do you do that? You will find a different way of describing spreading of risk, how the distribution of risk works, the need for security. So there's the thing from the study guide, and sometimes in your own words it might be simpler, it might be shorter, and that is also fine. Sometimes it will be longer. I'm not going to go into problem type questions because of course the discussion around assignment 1 really talked about it, but really look at the question, identify the area within it which it falls. So the first instance, it was all about what happens when now somebody has passed, and what happens to the beneficiaries. When does this, how does a clause within the contract change whether a beneficiary can benefit from the insurance that has been taken out? So you're looking at that very specific thing. The second one was very plain and simple. It had to do with insurable interest. So identify the legal problems, set out the legal principles, and then of course apply them and tell us what you think. And that is again where people, every now and then you get that student that writes really well, gets 4 out of 5 because they did not say if Maggie had a case. They did not say if the insurance was right to deny her the benefit. Or for the second question to say, well, can Tavilo actually get the money? You have to say yes and no, and whether that can happen. That's a mark. That's an easy mark. We will ask for critical case discussions, and here we may or may not, and if we don't want the facts, we'll say, no, we don't want the facts. But in some instances, we will want the important facts. Yes. For example, in the in some, the fact that the car that was being driven was red, that's an unimportant fact. Give us the specific relevant facts, the decision and the reasons for the decision. And of course, in some instances, the decisions have been criticized. Give us that too. So that you will have to assess with the kind of marks that are for that question. And your textbook is quite good at setting those out. Where we want criticism, we will, as it is in this question, ask you to critically analyze. Yeah. So you have to say, well, was this a good idea or not? And there are authors who, it's not a good idea for X, Y, and Z reason. So you'd be asked, so in this, for example, the Lake versus reinsurance case, the court tried its hand at setting up a definition. And that was exactly what was criticized because it was vague. Do you agree with the authors? Do you think the judge was correct? Do you think the authors? And you'll see that the authors are, if you're going to disagree with the judge and get published, you will have to have really, really good reasons for it. And generally, such academic experts and authors have really good reasoning, and you find out in the next case that decided they refer back to those experts, and I think it's that is the most gratifying thing for some people. So what should you avoid? Please don't do a replace and find, because when you do a replace and find, it finds simple ways of writing things, and that can actually be problematic because sometimes we have legal terminology for a reason, because that is actually the easiest way to resolve things. Don't copy and paste because it is only 4 hours. You'll think you can get back to it and correct it. It won't necessarily always work. Please do not copy from an internet source without having read the case or the journal article, because you'll not know if what they're saying is right or wrong. Please, and do not leave your exam preparation for the day of the exam. Even though it is open book, it is 4 hours. It's like as real as exam as possible. What must you avoid? Well, stress, I suppose. Have your notes ready. And answer from your notes. So that means you have to make them in the first place. So go to the e-reserves, look through the cases, articles, your textbook, have your notes ready so that you are not at that point leafing through things. Where is your exam? You'll find it on the My Exam platform. It's different from the My Module, it looks different from the My Module platform. Please don't worry about that. you have to get the Invigilator app. You should already download it. It works with Android and Apple devices. There's a user guide that you should, if you're a little bit rusty, go look at the user guide. I think it's fairly easy to sort of reacquaint yourself. It's very important. So the things that are quite important here is to make sure that your device is working, the app is working, you are in a place where you're not impacted drastically by the load shedding. That and any issues with that are things that we cannot help you with. Okay. So the app, I know there's a few things you have to do, but just remember it does pick up if you have more than one student writing the same thing in close proximity. It does pick up on background noises and any kind of talking that you're doing. So please be very, very careful. So you submit your script on the app and on My Exam. It is very important to remember that you have to do it on both. And make sure that you do it on My Exams, before you submit on the app, make sure that you do My Exams and then the app, okay? Because that is, I think, to me as a lecturer, I really want to see your script there and make sure that you put it on both, but start off with the My Exam just to make it, there are no technical glitches there. There is a WhatsApp line. This is the same one as the one before. There is a demo test you can do. So please do that. If this is the first exam you're writing, please do your demo test beforehand. This is the QR code. It would be on the exam paper as well. And of course, it will be on the welcome page on the My Exam platform as well. So final preps, open book counts 80%, study prescribed reading, textbook, study guide. Yeah, that's where I will stop. And I'm going to now leave it to Dr. Vambe and Professor Jacobs to add to that. Dr. Jacobs, would you like to go first?
No, the only thing that's left for me to say is best wishes with the exam preparation. I think you've basically covered the majority of things that had to be covered, and the students are already at fourth year level. So I think we should at this point assume that there's quite already, they've gained a lot of knowledge in how to answer problem type questions and how to summarize case law, and we can expect a high quality of submissions in the exam. I can just not stress enough that you have alluded to it, that we need to prepare ourselves for the unlikely or the likely event of load shedding, and we don't want you to be ending up in a situation where you need to ask for an aggregate or sorts that like. So please prepare yourself that you have the necessary means and resources to write the exams despite of load shedding in your area. Thank you. That's all from my side, and thank you for preparing the PowerPoint and for giving the students the guidelines they can now do their final revisions.
Dr. Vambe, and of course, we are open for students to raise their hands as well if there's very specific issues. Go ahead, Dr. Vambe.
Thank you, Miss Rafi, and thank you, Prof. Vineet. I'd like to thank you for what you've shared with the students. I will encourage the students to keep focused and try practicing the questions that you have at home so that when you're in the exam situation, you do not panic. Just stay focused and everything will be okay. And God bless. Thank you. Yes, Miss Rafia?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if there's any hands being raised. I'll give you guys. Here we go. Let me see. Sorry, I can't see. Miss Nama, KS Nama. I don't know. I don't see a face, so I can't say who it is. Go ahead.
Good morning. Oh, sorry. Good day, Ms. Rafia. Thank you for the opportunity. I just have 3 questions.
Sure.
I apologize. I only entered the online class on the slide that was referring to tutorial letter 102. I just wanted to know how much I've missed before or prior to that.
Okay.
I just would like to take screenshots of that if it's possible. Or will there be a recording of the
There will be a
class?
recording available. There will be a recording available. What are
Okay.
your other 2 questions?
Okay, my other 2 questions are how efficient is the Turnitin app? I just like I said, I was late, so I just want to know how efficient it is if it's looking for similarities, if we're going to get our answers from the same PPR's legislation and prescribed book. So is it looking for exact answers or just similarity?
No.
I'm just
Yeah. No. That's the other thing. I mean, it might say there are similarities between, let's say, 10 students. And then as lecturers, we sort of go and look and we're like, oh, that's because they're all referring to the same legislation. And
okay.
it doesn't make that choice. We still are involved in going, ignore this is important, that isn't. So that's
Okay.
not going to happen.
All right. I also needed clarification on what is replace and find.
Oh, when we say replace and find, and this is just something that you know, when they in Word, I almost want to show you, and then I think I shouldn't because that might give you guys ideas. There is a functionality on Word that you can say Control F, and then it finds a specific word. And if you then do a drop-down menu, you can just replace that word with another word.
Oh.
So some people do that, and it ends up being a huge mess because you might just say find insurable interest, and then
Yeah.
somebody says replace it by something else, and it just messes up the meaning of the whole thing that you've written.
Okay.
Prof,
All right. My
Mr. Gama,
last
just want to
my
come in here, Mr.
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Now,
No problem.
yes, so just in connection with your previous question and also this one. So Turnitin throws out for the lecturers categories of students, red category, orange and green. So we tend to focus on the red ones or the orange ones, which are high similarities. And this is where the example of send cut and replies comes in, because students try to work together, and then the one would say blah 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 blah, however, and then the other one would say blah 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 blah, whereas. But is cleverer than that. It picks up sequences of words. So if there's a sequence of, say for instance, 7 or 8 or whatever that it picks up, it will throw out that whole passage to us.
Okay.
So we will then see, okay, no, it's fine. The students refer to the PPRs, that's fine. But we will also then see, no, this student has got the same answer as XYZ from A to Z, except they've just found it and replaced some terms. So that it can land you into hot water in 2 instances. One, because Turnitin will pick that up. And 2, as Mrs. Dagama said, you can by accident, by not thinking, use the wrong word. Whereas in insurance law, we've got specific terms, and we want you to use the term insurable interest, or we want you to use the term indemnity insurance, non-indemnity. We don't want you to use foreign cases and foreign case law, because they've got other terminology that we don't necessarily use. So we pick up when you've consulted other things or used other, when you don't use the terminology from South African law. Sorry, you had another question.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. My last question is, where are the practice questions? That's one of the things I've been looking for. I've been trying to practice with past assignments like tutorial letters, and I could only find these on Telegram, but I must say that they kind of I'm not satisfied with all of the practice questions. So where can I find a good set of questions to practice by? That's what I've just been looking for.
You would have noticed that in the study guide,
I was
there's
gonna say,
after
yeah.
each unit there's practice questions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Or
You
are
can,
those sufficient?
so you can go through those, and
Yeah.
then I think there is you did your assignments. You have got
Mm.
assignment questions.
Mm.
Sometimes lecturers also. I was on leave now, so I don't know, but sometimes they also upload some questions under the discussion forums. You know,
I
so I don't
also
know.
wanted to
For
touch
last
on
year,
that.
perhaps remember there's two sets of students in this class. So when you guys email us, the students that are writing supplementaries, you
Mm.
must study from your 2022 materials. Okay,
Mm.
because you didn't pay for this year. So your access and your tab and your study materials are for 2022. Then the students for 2023 have got access to the 2023 site and the 2023 tutorial letters.
But we're writing the same exam.
Yes, but we know we don't change the prescribed sources. If we change it, we will make sure that everybody's got the updated stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry to get the 2023 102 if you had the 2022 102. Am I correct, Mrs. Takama?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And that is why when we are updating courses, and I know we are going to be doing that at some point.
The
It is a
discussion.
process. It's a
Oh,
very specific process, and it takes a lot of effort, and it is done with a forward idea of when it will start and how it will impact the students. So we make sure that if there are changes or if there's updating that happens, that all of the students who are impacted will be made aware of it.
okay. The discussion forums. I've also been looking for discussions on there. I maybe I'm only familiar with the discussion forum on the old portal, but
Mm.
since we use Moodle, I've never
Yes.
encountered a discussion forum that's quite as interactive as the
No.
old one. So which discussion forum is this and how do I find it?
Yeah, so the discussion forums are far less used. Well, we are still getting used to the new system as well. I think we've gotten better at narrated PowerPoints and uploading a lot of different things. But the old system had a very interactive version, and we're still getting our heads around how to do that. So apologies, we haven't used it.
So there's no practice questions on the discussion forum.
No, because we do keeping in mind that the study guide has quite a few
Okay.
that really covers every aspect of the different learning units.
I'm sorry, it may just sound like I'm being
Mm.
too critical, but the thing
No,
is,
no, it's
I've
fine.
noticed that the content of this work is immense, and there's some technical elements that one has to grasp, and I just I need to. I feel like maybe the work the ways in which we can practice are far less than the standard of the exam, how it's marked, and there is no leniency as opposed to the opportunities we're given to practice as much as we can.
I just want to come in here. Mr. Gama, I was now on leave, so I'm not totally updated. But as I can recall the lessons, the PowerPoint lessons,
Mm.
if we teach the work, I'm sure there was some examples given
Mm-hmm.
when the work was taught.
Yeah. Now they
Uh,
usually are. There's always that aspect of going through the material and talking through it and talking to concepts and examples are an excellent way of describing things. And I think this is always going to be and it's always great to get comments like this, and we can think of how to improve things. I appreciate any comment. And that is quite useful to keep in mind. At the same time, and this is perhaps, I don't think that the material is as much as you think. Compared to other courses, it's an optional final year course. I know myself, and we, you know, anyone that has sort of looked at it, and we keep wanting to add more, and then we go, no, we should, you know, and it should be, and all of those sort of things. So we have been very conservative with what we've put up. So, and
I don't know. I don't know. The
I
thing
know,
is, I get
I
quite
know.
good results, and it was a shock to me at how low my results were on my assignment. And you know, it's just a surprise. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for.
Can I suggest something? And this goes for all students, and what I know, as this is still being recorded. If you have an issue with a concept that is not clear enough for you after you've engaged with the material, if you have any questions about, you know, your marks on assignments or anything like that, really, I can tell you this, and I don't know if any of the students who have actually asked questions on the content are here, but I do know this. We pride ourselves on coming back to you very quickly to explain something.
Mm.
So we understand it is a very technical part of a South African law. It has, you know, it has immense impact on all trade that happens in this country and people's private lives.
Mm.
So we have to be judicious in terms of that we give you enough technical knowledge in the materials that we have prescribed. So we have to balance that out, but we are also, email us, we answer back quite quickly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kama. And
As
thank you,
long as
Prof.
you don't say, I don't understand the whole of learning unit X. I don't want
No.
that. You know, just ask
Yeah.
me about a concept. I will, you know, we are very, you know, and I usually do this because I'm always questioning my own understanding. I tend to go,
Yeah.
let me go and look it up again. And
Yeah.
I read it again myself, and
Yeah.
then I answer back.
Just to make
Please.
an
So
example,
email us.
I'm sorry to extend the time that I've been asking.
No,
Just to
no, no,
make an
go ahead.
example, you know, I noticed the technicality when they discuss third parties regarding the topic of the parties to an insurance contract, and I realized that this is so complex that if they ask a trick question, even if it's an open book, it's like, will they ask this question to catch me out? Because you understand what's happening, but the differences and the impact that a third party may have to the contract or lack thereof kind of makes it a bit stressful. Like, oh my God, will I not be asked question to get tricked here?
Can I just say one thing? And I like the use of trick question there, because I know Professor Jacobs, we never try, and Dr. Bombay, I'm sure the idea is never to trick you, ever.
No,
If it looks simple, it's usually a simple answer. Really, we are looking for a simple answer. We are not trying to trick you.
Okay.
because it
All
matters.
right.
Do we
Please
need to mark that?
don't read into questions.
Okay. I'm just a very stressed student, as you can tell, but thank you so much.
I can hear it, and I think you should email me. I'll call you. You just need to study, try and do as many questions as possible. And when we say do the questions, this is something I learned the hard way as a student myself. Look at the question and go, oh, I understand this. I know what they expect here, and move on to the next question. Write it down and then check, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Dagama, I'm going to put you on the spot now, but I think you'll forgive me.
Sure.
We've got a document that I've quickly retrieved from my computer on student aids, which where we have a couple of questions and a couple of model
it's
answers.
right there.
So, Ms. Kama, I think it might help you a bit to alleviate your nerves. So we'll put this document over the weekend, and we'll pick.
I think it's
a
on
few
my module
questions.
side, actually.
If it's not
It's
on
actually
there,
on the
we'll put it on, because that document is an 11-pager, And please note, it's not the questions that we put there that you can study it to try to,
Yeah.
model answer. Ms. Dagama set the paper in January already, and this is a standard.
Yeah.
But this will just give you some example of how to answer questions.
Thank you so much. I would
So,
appreciate that.
Mrs. Dagama will have a look if it's on the module site. If it's not on yet, we'll put a part of
Yeah,
it.
it should be
some
there.
part
I'm
on.
checking it as we speak. Sorry if
Okay.
I can
So
just
we will
quickly
then
go.
put it on, and that will please regard it as a bit of revision. This is not
Mm.
spot questions, please, but it
Thank you, Prof.
shows you how to
Yeah,
answer.
there's student aids. Student aids. There's a whole thing on plagiarism, paraphrasing as well. It's on the 2023 site. I know definitely it's on the 2022 site as well for supplementary students.
Okay, great.
They
So
should definitely be there.
okay,
Definitely.
we'll just confirm, and I think post an announcement just to direct students exactly where it is again.
Please. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm answered fully. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Everybody's like sitting there very quietly listening in. Titla, you were at least laughing. Anyone else? Nazli, Ati, Kuliso. Anyone? I'm going to give you 2 minutes and then you must hold your peace.
Thank you, Mr. Gama. And if they have questions, maybe they could send them in through, they could email you the questions if they want some clarification. That's what I can add to that. But like you said, everything is there. Everything is there. And here we're not expecting students to say, please, I don't understand this whole chapter. You want to start explaining the meaning of a word. I mean, these things are available. Yes, there's a hand. There's a hand.
Go ahead. Farai? Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask if I have a specific question. Let's say I'm doing the practice questions and I want to ask on that specific question. Is it okay to email you in order to get like the answer, or at this stage, you don't take those kind of requests?
Yeah, I'm not going to give you a model answer for anything.
Okay.
And that is just, I don't think it's useful. But I think what is useful is understanding concepts and what a case is about and that sort of thing. I can give you general sort of ideas around it, but a model answer is not, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know about Professor Vinette Jacobs or Dr. Beauty Bombay, but I'm also going to say one last thing. If you email us, there's 3 of us in the course, CC all or the other 2, so that one person will come back to you. We usually do a reply all, then everybody knows that, that person has, there was a question, this person caught it and has replied to the student. So just make sure that you don't send individual emails to all of us, please. Did that help, Farad?
Yes, it's fine. It's helpful. Yes, thank you.
Somebody else had a hand up. I saw another person, but I don't know. Okay. Going once? Going twice? No questions. Looking at us, it does seem very strict. Okay. There's some comments in the thing. So going once, going twice. Thank you for attending. I'm going to stop the recording now. And I just wanted to say thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Vambe and Professor Jacobs. It's very kind of you to be here and to catch some of the very specific questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.